What's up YouTube? Today we're working on the Cams Trunion upgrade kit. Alright, in order to do the trunnion upgrade kit, obviously you need to get to the rocker arms. So, 4 8mm bolts, take the valve cover off. On the passenger side, you will have a vacuum hose going from the valve cover to the throttle body. Take that off, and 4 8mm bolts. Once you get the 4 bolts loose, you can just lift off the valve cover and inspect. This is a good time to go ahead and inspect if there's any issues, anything broken, anything looks particularly out of the ordinary in the valve train. As you can see, it actually looks really clean. Doesn't look like a lot of buildup, nothing burnt. I'm actually pretty happy with how this side looks. All right, after you take a good look, inspecting, making sure everything's okay, go ahead and get your 8mm and take off your rocker arm bolts. Once you get them unbolted, you could just lift it right off. Get them all off at one time. All right, once you get those taken off, I'm gonna leave the push rods in, but I'm gonna inspect them. And the way I'm gonna do that is I'll just pull them out. I'll pull one out at a time, check it, and then I'm gonna roll it on an incline to see if it's warped or bent at all. I'm just doing our roll check. So it rolls nice and smooth. And then just dipping the tip in some oil and go into the next one. Just checking to make sure none of the push rods are bent. To keep the push rods, because I'm gonna have to rotate this engine over, and just to keep safe so that the push rods don't fall out or have even the potential to fall out, I'm gonna go ahead and put the valve cover back on and bolt it down to just finger tight. That way I can get the other set of rocker arms on the other side. The reason why you want to do this upgrade is because once you start getting into really high RPMs, the bearings start to walk out on each other. This thing just sounds, this is old. Look at that. Yeah, I need a new one of these. So the bearings actually, the needle bearings, the casing will start to walk out and it'll just slip out. And then you got a bunch of needle bearings all going through your valve train, your oil pan pickup, and all that stuff. And that is not good news. And with these Comp Cam Trunion upgrade, you're able to, they're cased in to the actual casing itself, so there's no loose parts. I have read that some people may have issues with the C-clamps, and that's what actually holds the trunnion from walking out. On the Comp Cams, they have 2 C-clamps on the sides. As long as those are in good condition and those don't snap, this is a really good upgrade for you. Especially if you're doing any kind of road racing or drifting like I'm going to be doing, because I'm going to get up into those high RPMs, and I don't want to have to build a whole nother motor because I failed to do a little maintenance thing like this first. Again, once you get them all loose, you can just pick it up. All at once. Once you have the rocker arms out, you are ready to take the trunnions out. And you'll need a couple things first. You'll need a bench vise or a press, or if you just want to man it, maybe a C-clamp. As well as you need a 7/8 and a 9/16. It doesn't matter, 3/8, 1/2. They're the same size. So you need the 7/8 in order to cup, and you need the 9/16 to push it through. I have the Cams 13702 kit, and it comes with 2 washers for helping for installation. Comes with C-clips, comes with the bearings themselves, the bearings and the housing, the caps. So the bearings and the caps, and they come with new bolts. So these bolts you can disregard and throw away as well. So what you have on the rocker arm, where the trunnion is located inside the rocker arm, you have the caps here, and you see they rotate as the rocker arm will go up and down on both sides. We have the 7/8, and this will go around the outer housing, and that will allow the bearing to be pushed through into it. And then we have the 9/16 that goes inside, and it'll push through and go all the way through. Finding the ones with, the 2 wings on this side. See, there's very low on this side. On this side they're raised higher. Just kind of put them in here. It helps it a little bit as a guide. You want to make sure it's aligned pretty well, otherwise you put the socket actually on the rocker arm and you just crush the rocker arm. Since I don't have it actually bolted down, I gotta put my foot on it. And it pops out again. We have a trunnion out. That first initial push to break it loose to get free, it's kind of hard, and I was worried that I was actually pushing up against the rocker arm and it was going to snap it, but it just took a good bit of force. So I got all the trunnions out. I'm just going to put the rocker arms in a Ziploc bag. And then I got my purple power. I'm just going to fill it up. Alright, and I'll just let them sit overnight and then come back and brush them off and clean them up some more and see what they look like in the morning. Alright, so I have my bag of rocker arms that have been soaking in the purple power. It seems to be leaking a little bit now. I have my soap to help wash it off, and then toothbrush to brush them and where to dry. So let's clean these up. And here you can see the difference between the Comp Cams trunnion, or the case of the bearings, and the stock one. You can see here this is one piece, and you can see the needle bearings on the inside encased in here. It's just one thing. On the stock ones, it's many pieces. This piece slides right on out. Once this slide comes out, that's one, and they just then they just come falling out. And so you can see this is a much better design. One thing to keep in mind, it is crucial when you're putting these in, as you can see on the Comp Cams one here, I'll show you this picture, you can see the lettering on the actual casing itself. You can see the other side has no lettering or anything like that. The side with the casing is it looks a little more squared on the end, and the non written side is a little rounder. And CompCam says it's crucial that you have the lettering facing out. So that would mean that if you were to look closely on here, you'd be able to see the lettering. So it's facing out on each end. All right, well, I went ahead and did some. I just wanted to make sure, you know, how it worked before I got it done, but let me walk you through the steps. Now, to install this, you have your rocker arm, you have your bearing, your casing, and then you have some C-clips that will go around these edges. The first thing you'll do is you'll take your rocker arm and you'll take one of these and you'll put it with the words facing out, and you'll want to put it as level as possible. You really don't want to be trying to install these at an angle. Okay, and you'll use the two supplied washers. You get two of these to go on it. Put it on one side. And you don't have to, but I like using this other washer so I'm not marring up the surface of the other side of the rocker arm. This is where a press would be very nice, because you can just use gravity and just put them on top of each other and they're nice and lined up. Okay, so what you'll want to do is push this in till it's flush, and it goes in really easy. And then you'll back it back out. You can see this nice and flush. Then what you'll do is you'll drop this down on the inside. As you can see, it slides all the way through. You get your other casing with the letters facing out. You'll want it going as flat as possible. And from this point, I like to push it through on this one, because what will happen is this will fit right on top of that. And then I'll go ahead and get that lined up. And then I'll open it a little bit. And it takes a little bit of work to get the other side to actually line up. There we go, you see it moves nice and freely now, back and forth. Of course, as you push the bearing in, there's going to be less side-to-side movement. You want to keep checking as you're pushing it in. And pull it back out. It still rotates freely. There is a flat side, and then there's a rounded side. And the supplied screw goes on the flat side. So what I do is align it so the flat side is up. I'll get my snap ring pliers and I'll get the C-clamp and I'll just put it in just a little. Put in just a little. And then put this side up, squeeze it, slide it on, take it off, and you can see it's all the way on. And I have all the C-clamps facing down. One more time. Just barely on, because if you put it too far on, when you go to put it on, your pliers will end up bumping into the body of the rocker arm, and it won't seat on right. And there you go. Alright, well, let's do one more. I'll go ahead and grab my two casings, grab the bearing, two C-clips, line it up even, put the washer on one side, and the vise with just enough space, slide the other washer down, and tighten it up. So that's flush. In the other bearing, put in the bearing, put in the casing, slide it back through. Line the washer up with this one, put the washer on here, try to get it lined up to where it goes through the second washer. Make sure it moves freely. And start cranking it down. Always keep checking. Well, see, it's starting to get tight, so I'm not lined up on one of these. There we go, now it's moving freely. Just take it out and adjust a little bit just to make sure. Alright, and there you go. Of course, if you do mess up, you could still, just do it the same way you took out the stock ones. You just make sure it's lined up and then start pressing it out. And then you can just go back and reseat them. At this point, we're ready for assembly. So we checked the push rods, we rolled them, made sure they were straight just in case. Put a little oil on the tip of them, put them down into the lifters. And then we have this rocker arm tray. We cleaned off the surface and put the tray with the letters up, has a little tab so it sticks on it. And we just kind of line it up with some of the holes. And just so everything wasn't so dry, I sat the rocker arms in some oil overnight, and we're just going to place those on. And the thing to keep in mind is there's a flat side and a rounded side, and the rounded side goes down, the flat side goes up, and just place them on top of there. And then you want to use the comp cams screws that came with the kit on the actual in here, and they're Allen keyed to 6 millimeters. And all we'll do here is we'll just get them started a little bit finger tight, or not even finger, we'll just get them threaded a little bit, and then we'll find top dead center. There is some debate whether or not you need to go to top dead center because of preloading on the spring and things like that. Some people, the manual says go to top dead center, and then there's an exhaust and an intake order that you go in. Other people say just torque it a little bit, spin the crank over so the engine rotates a few times, then crank them down, spin it a couple more times, crank it down just to keep them checked. I'm gonna go by the service manual just in case. All right, we'll just get the screw down here and get it started. And the idea is once you start to torque them down, once you get to top dead center and you find your order, or however you want to end up doing it, you'll want to hold the center as best as you can on the spring and then torque it down so it sits. You don't want it cockeyed a little bit to the side. I gave a couple quick turns on the crank just to make sure everything was rotating fine and the valves and things like that. But I'm gonna find top dead center by taking off the front cover, because I plan on changing the timing set stuff as well. But for this video, just know that you got to get to top dead center. All right, with it top dead center, you see the circles there, and you can, well, with a flashlight you could barely see it on there. But with it top dead center on the exhaust 1, 2, 7, and 8, and the intake 1, 3, 4, and 5, you'll go ahead and torque down first to 30 newton meters or 22 foot-pounds. Then you'll rotate the crank 360 degrees, and then you'll go to exhaust 3, 4, 5, 6, and intake 2, 6, 7, 8. So let's go ahead and do that. Set your torque wrench to 22 foot-pounds. Make sure you're keeping the rocker arm in the center of the valve the best you can. That way it's not rolling off of it. Pretty much, once you get it seated a little bit, once it starts getting kind of heavy, it will stay on there. And then you just get it to 22 foot-pounds. Okay, I went through the torquing sequence and got them torqued down, and then I went ahead and turned it 360 degrees, checked them all again. Then I did a couple rotations, 3 or 4 rotations, and checked them one last time. So these should all be torqued down Just keep them, you know, keep them lined up in the center as you're initially torquing them down. If you're not sure the intake or the exhaust, if you wanted to do it the long way, you could always do it to where one of the valves starts to push down. That means this one's off low because it's all the way up. You could torque it down and keep turning. You could do it that way as well. Or you possibly could even do what some people do, is they just torque them all down, then they rotate it a couple times, they check them again, rotate it, and do like that. Or as the manual says, you go to top dead center and then you do the exhaust 1, 2, 7, and 8, and the intake 1, 3, then 4 and 5, and then you rotate it 360 degrees. Then you do the exhaust 3, 4, 5, and 6, and the intake 2, 6, 7, and 8. And that's how you get done. The only thing left now is to put we want to clean this surface up and clean the valve covers up and get new seals, and we'll put them back on.